You get in your car this morning. The seat feels the same as it did yesterday. Your hand finds the key or the fob, a click, then a hum. You press a pedal. The engine responds like it's been waiting for you all night. And in the time it takes you to check your GPS, you've moved 40 meters, maybe more, every hour, except it's not just 40 meters, it's a whole physics cheat. You didn't push a single muscle toward the road. You didn't fight the air. You didn't bargain with gravity. You just turned on a machine that learned how to do the heavy lifting for you. Now imagine the same trip, same distance, same I have somewhere to be from about 100,000 years ago. It isn't a scenic hike. It isn't an adventure. It's 2 full days of walking barefoot through terrain that could kill you. There's no road, no path, no sign that says asterisk this way is safe, or asterisk this way leads home, or don't go that way, there's a cliff, asterisk. There's just ground, sky, and the quiet math of risk. For most of human history, getting anywhere meant risking everything. You had nothing to carry you there except your own 2 feet. And then something shifts. Slow at first, then so fast you can barely see it happen. You can fly across the planet in a day. You can order something from the other side of the world and it shows up at your door. Movement becomes so easy it becomes invisible. You stop thinking about it, you stop noticing it. But for roughly 300,000 years, every single journey a human being ever took happened at walking speed. And that one limitation, walking, didn't just affect how fast you went. It shaped what you ate, who you married, which places you even heard about, and how much of the world you could realistically touch. So let's start at the beginning. Not with cars, not with planes, back when your body was the vehicle.
Your feet. You're built for long distances, not for winning races. If you think you're fast because you can sprint once, try to keep it up for hours. Your breathing turns into thunder. Your legs start to burn in a way that feels personal.
A cheetah can sprint to around 70 miles per hour. A horse can sustain close to 30 for miles. You, maybe 15 for a few seconds, and then your body begs for mercy. Speed was never the point. The point was endurance, the ability to keep going without falling apart. You can walk for a day, sleep and walk again tomorrow, and again the day after. You can do it for weeks. Other animals can run themselves into exhaustion and stop. But you can keep negotiating with the world, asterisk step, breathe, again and again. Your feet are engineered like natural springs. They flex instead of collapsing. They store a little energy every time you land and give it back when you lift. Your Achilles tendon acts like a coiled ribbon of recoil. Each step turns your body into a system that tries to waste as little effort as possible. Even your neck helps you. There's a ligament running up the back of it that stabilizes your head while the rest of you moves underneath like a steady boat in a moving sea. And then there's sweat, your invisible safety net. You've got about 2 million sweat glands helping you cool down. Most large mammals overheat and have to stop. You can keep moving because your body doesn't treat heat like an emergency alarm. It treats it like a problem that can be managed. You're not built to be fast. You're built to never stop. Now picture a moment more than 3 million years ago. In 1978, paleoanthropologist Mary Leakey discovered footprints in Latoli, Tanzania. They were pressed into volcanic ash about 3.6 million years ago. 2 people walking upright side by side. They don't look like a strange alien from the past. They look almost like yours. That's the oldest evidence of bipedal walking we've found, and it's a huge clue. Humans didn't simply start moving on 2 legs because it was cool. They did it because something about walking offered a survival advantage. For millions of years, that was it. Transportation technology for humans was your body. And somehow that was enough to get you farther than any other species had ever managed before. Starting roughly 70,000 years ago, humans began walking out of Africa, not as one giant march, not as a single dramatic "we're leaving" moment. It happened generation by generation, small groups pushing a little further into territory no one in their history had ever explored. Like someone quietly testing the edge of a map, then stepping past it. First the Middle East, then across Asia, then Europe, then Siberia, then at the edge of the known, through a land bridge into Alaska. And from there down through the Americas, that's around 15,000 miles of movement without ever knowing the destination existed. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. They weren't wandering like lost tourists. Archaeologists have found obsidian tools hundreds of miles from the nearest volcanic source. Shells show up far inland. Amber has been traded across mountain ranges. These people weren't just traveling, they were networking on foot. They were exchanging information the way you might exchange a name, a warning, a promise. There's something useful over there. Asterisk, they weren't mapping the whole world on paper, they were stitching knowledge together through distance and contact. So walking moved humans across the planet, but walking has enemies. A river is the kind of obstacle that feels simple until it keeps happening. You can cross deserts, you can cross mountains if you're careful, you can endure weather that tries to grind you down. But water, a river doesn't argue, it just keeps going. For hundreds of thousands of years, a body of water was basically a wall. You either found a shallow crossing or you turned around. And then somehow humans figured out something no land animal ever has: how to cross water on purpose. In 2003, archaeologists working on the island of Flores in Indonesia found stone tools dating back around 800,000 years. Flores has never been connected to the mainland. Even during the lowest sea levels in the ice ages, there was still at least 12 miles of open ocean between it and the nearest land. That means one thing: someone made the crossing. We don't know what they used. Wood rots, bamboo decomposes. Whatever it was could have vanished completely. But the tools remained, the crossing happened, and the first boats weren't necessarily invented like a machine in a workshop. They could have been discovered through desperation and luck, someone grabbing a floating log to cross a stream and not drowning, learning that the water can be negotiated. But the real breakthrough, that's when the idea stops being a one-time miracle and becomes a plan. Around 65,000 years ago, humans crossed from Southeast Asia to Australia. That crossing meant sailing at least 60 miles of open ocean. You can't see Australia from the other side. You can't drift there by accident and call it fate. Someone built something that could float, pointed it toward a direction they couldn't verify, then paddled. Think about that. You leave solid ground, you don't know what's waiting. You're gambling with your life against an invisible horizon. The first preserved boat we found is the Pesse canoe from the Netherlands, about 10,000 years old. A hollowed-out log, simple, raw. But boats as a concept go back much earlier than that. People were living on islands long before any fancy boat existed, which means whatever they used to reach them had to have been out there long before we found it. And then this is where the story gets almost mythic. Comes the Polynesians. Starting around 3,000 years ago, they crossed the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on Earth. They built double-hulled canoes. They loaded food and animals. Entire families went with them. And they sailed thousands of miles, reading the world like it was written in wind and light. No compass, no map you can fold. Just observation. The direction of ocean swells, how birds flew, the color of clouds near land. Their navigation wasn't guessing. It was precision learned through repetition and survival. They reached Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, and every habitable island in the Pacific. Some voyages covered over 2,500 miles of open water, with nothing in between but sky, water, and the confidence that the next island was real. Walking conquered land, boats conquered water. So you might think the problem is solved, but there's another limit hiding inside the everyday. You can walk 20 miles, but you cannot walk 20 miles carrying a 200-pound animal you just killed like it's a backpack. For most of human history, the limit on transportation wasn't distance, it was weight. Your body can handle maybe 40 to 60 pounds before the work breaks you down. You can carry the essentials, sure, but not the whole world. Not enough to transport large supplies. Not enough to move entire camps. So humans started cheating. Not with magic, with invention. First, dragging. Kill something big, throw it on a hide, and drag it back toward camp. Archaeologists have found wear marks on ancient hides, scars that only show up when something heavy has been pulled a long distance. It wasn't pretty. It was effort. Then the travois, two long poles tied together in a V shape with a platform slung between them. Drag the narrow end, let the wide end carry the load. The weight spreads out instead of crushing the person pulling it. With a travois, one person could move over 100 pounds. And here's what makes it heartbreaking. The travois likely existed for centuries, but it was made of wood and leather materials that don't last. So we mainly know it existed because people were using it when Europeans arrived in the Americas thousands of years later. The breakthrough in moving weight wasn't only invention, it was partnership. Around 15,000 years ago, humans domesticated dogs. The first animal you truly partnered with. One of their jobs was hauling weight. In the Arctic, dogs pulled sleds across ice and snow. A single dog can move about 45 pounds, and a team of 6 can pull enough to move a family's camp. But dogs are small. Humans needed bigger hauling power, more muscle in the world, trained for movement. So around 5,500 years ago, in what's now Kazakhstan, humans figured out the horse. We know because archaeologists have found wear marks on horse teeth from bits, evidence that someone was controlling and directing the animal. Pots and residues show mare's milk baked into pottery, pointing to a life built around horses, riding, milking, and integrating them into daily survival. Then the math changed. For roughly 300,000 years, humans traveled at walking speed around 4 miles per hour. On a horse, you can move far faster, sometimes around 30. In a single generation, your world gets 8 times smaller. Distances shrink. The time it takes to move messages, trade, and fight collapses. An army on horseback can reach you before you've even processed that it's coming. Wherever humans spread, they found a local animal that could do the heavy lifting. Donkeys through deserts, camels across the Sahara, reindeer in Arctic snow, llamas across the Andes. Humans didn't just adapt to land, they adapted to local strength. But the horse didn't solve everything.
Because horses still have an upper limit: load, stability, efficiency, roads. And there's a surprise. Humans crossed every ocean on Earth before anyone invented the wheel. The oldest known wheel shows up in the Ljubljana marshes of Slovenia, about 5,200 years old.
That's late. Boats go back at least 10,000 years, and probably more. Horses were tamed around 5,500 years ago. Humans had already sailed to Australia 65,000 years earlier. So the wheel wasn't the first big breakthrough, it was one of the last major ones in transportation. It didn't even begin as transportation. The first wheels were for pottery, a spinning disc shaping clay. And at some point, someone looked at that disc and thought, asterisk, what if we put something on top of it? The first wheeled vehicles were clunky, solid wood wheels, heavy and slow. They cracked on rough ground, they got stuck in mud. On rough terrain, a horse without a cart might actually be faster. But then came the upgrade that mattered. Around 2000 BC, someone figured out the spoked wheel. Lighter, stronger, and way more effective over distance. Now you could build chariots that combined speed and cargo, and once you had wheels working better, you needed roads. The first paved road we know of runs through a city around 4000 BC. Now picture the system clicking into place. Wheel, horse, road. Trade becomes more reliable, supplies move farther, armies travel with structure, empires stop being dreams and become logistics. And suddenly the world isn't just connected, it's organized. So here's the full picture, stripped down to its essential steps, like walking back through time with your eyes open. For around 300,000 years, humans had their legs. They walked. They learned that the body could do more than humans initially realized, more endurance than any other animal seems to naturally manage. Then they hit water and discovered floating. They needed to carry more, so they dragged. They developed carrying frames like the travois. Then they befriended animals to move weight, first dogs, then horses. And when the wheel arrived after centuries of boating, after centuries of riding along with roads, the distance problem finally started to behave like something you can control. Trade exploded. Civilizations became possible at scales that would have sounded like fantasy to someone in an earlier century. And you can feel that legacy every time you drive, every time you board a train, every time you watch cargo ship containers stacked like bright metal blocks moving through the world's veins. Now sit with a strange thought. Your life today contains motion that feels like background noise. You don't consider how hard it used to be. You don't think about the risk. You just go. You sit in a metal box on a paved road doing 70. You fly 3,000 miles across an ocean in 6 hours and complain that the Wi-Fi buffers. You have a machine in your pocket that can summon a car to your exact location in minutes, and you're irritated it takes 5. But your ancestors walked barefoot across continents they couldn't name to places they had never seen. They didn't have a weather forecast, they didn't have a map. They didn't know which day would be safe, which hill would break a leg, which river would be too wide to cross. They went because staying still meant dying. That's the core of the story. Not ambition, not convenience, survival. Distance used to be a monster. You had to negotiate with it one step at a time, then one crossing at a time, then one invention at a time. And then, over and over, you turned obstacles into pathways. Your feet learned to go longer. Your eyes learned how to find land you couldn't see yet. Your hands learned how to float. Your minds learned how to plan routes without paper. Your bodies learned how to carry more by using frames and teams. Your world shrank when horses arrived. Your systems multiplied when the wheel and roads came together. Solving distance became so complete that you forgot it was ever a problem. Every highway, every airport, every set of train tracks on this planet exists because someone 300,000 years ago looked at the horizon and decided to walk anyway. They didn't know the destination. They didn't have the luxury of knowing. They just went. And that, honestly, that's the most human thing you can do. Turn one step into a future